Welcome to the Healthier Tech Podcast, the show about building a healthier relationship with modern technology. Now, here are your hosts, R. Blank and Stephanie Warner.
Dr. Pat Boulogne is a certified functional medicine practitioner, coach, chiropractor, speaker, and author of the bestseller, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? Her career spans over 35 years, assisting thousands of clients in overcoming complex chronic problems by addressing them as a whole person instead of just treating symptoms. Dr. Pat is the founder and principal of Ask Dr. Pat Health Team Network, a company dedicated to skyrocketing your health, lifestyle, and mindset with strategies and programs that make sense and help you age gracefully, think, move, and feel better, and live longer and happier. Welcome, Dr. Pat, to the Healthier Tech Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today and share time with you guys.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really glad you could make the time. So just to kick us off, you have a really diverse career background, a lot of titles in the bio I just read. Can you share some of your journey and how you became so passionate about health?
Well, one of the things is my father always, and you're going to say, why is my father involved in this? But my father is turning over in his grave right now. He was so concerned that I was going to be a perpetual student and that I was never going to graduate and I was going to keep on going on and on and on and on. And every time I got another degree, and all the ones that I did get are not on there, it just added to that. So what drove me and my passion about that is I found that when I worked in the University of Michigan Hospital, not a paid position, by the way, it was a independent study, and I never saw anybody get well. And at that time, it was before, a lot of hospitals turned into trying to be spas, or having that kind of feeling. So, and the only place in the hospital that people actually were happy was in the maternity ward the day after. And so it really spurred me on. And I was working a little bit on like an MBA, I was, toying with that and taking a couple classes because I already graduated with my pre-med. And I also was working as a waitress, and my shoulder started to kill me. And I woke up one morning where I couldn't even move it. And a friend of mine, I called him up, who went to chiropractic school. And I said, what do you think I should do? He goes, go to a chiropractor. And then I can hear my father in my head saying, chiropractors are quacks. And so, but I went anyway, just because of that. And so when I went into this guy's office, I realized that I could do what he does with people, and I could do it better. It is like the whole light in the universe turned on. And so when I got out of that appointment, I went home, applied for school, chiropractic school, quit the MBA program. And I signed up to go to chiropractic school, and I never looked back. It's been life changing for myself in a lot of ways, for things that I was already experiencing that people think it's normal. It's like it's normal to have a sinus headache, or it's normal to have a headache. It's normal to throw up after you eat something that you don't like, but it's not. I mean, it's just like you shouldn't have to throw up food that is like nutritious for you. And so I was looking for the rhyme and the reason, and I was very fortunate in chiropractic school to actually latch on to some really great mentors in that industry, like the old guys that everyone wanted to be around. They walked into the room and you had everyone go, tell me, how do you do this? And they were still alive then. There's only one person out of that whole group that's still alive. And if he ever comes anywhere near me, I would get on a plane, train, or an automobile to go see him, just to sit there and listen to his wisdom. But those guys, I mean, it was such a fantastic, time. And so taking that information from that, and then going into business where I had the opportunity to help sick people get well and people to maintain their wellness. And some people walking in, like crawling in and walking out in no pain. I went like, wow, how could that be? How could the rest of the world miss that? And so it really, really drove me to go out and talk to women, like, you should go be a chiropractor, and stop people in the middle of airports when I was traveling. Like, why do you have a shoulder problem? What happened? And they're looking at me like I'm nuts, because they're going, how do you know that? Who are you anyway? And I said, listen, I'm a chiropractor, blah, blah, blah. Here's my card. If you can't find somebody in your neighborhood, I will find somebody for you. And so that's just how I, did all my MO for that, to help people get well and maintain that wellness. And it's such a happy moment when that light goes on, and someone says, like, I just realized something, and they get it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I can hear the joy in your voice and see it in your face. Did you by any chance ever, since you're in business, did you ever go back and finish your MBA?
No.
Oh.
I think life gave me the MBA, the fast route. In my practice, I bought a practice that was underserved. And when I got divorced, I bought my husband out of his portion of the practice. And then I kept it for another 3 more years. And then I sold that part of the business. And then I moved up to Boston, and I had private coaching and in working with people one-on-one when I lived downtown Boston.
And so it's in through that coaching business that you were motivated to write "Why Are You?" And I just love this title. I think you came up with a great title, particularly for an American audience. But why are you sick, fat, and tired? Was that through the work that you were doing in the coaching business and the motivation to write this book?
Well, kind of, I had somebody who told me that I wasn't living up to my full human potential. And I took it personally. I'm like, what do you mean? and so he said to me, he goes, you're going to write a book. He goes, you have the ability to heal masses of people. And he said, and when you come to the second stage of your life, you have the opportunity to be on stage. And I said, I'm not sure when my second half of my life starts. So what happened is that I had all these, when he said that, it planted the seed. And then, I kept on having, people who I was working with when I was working with them nutritionally, even when I had my practice, that would say to me, Dr. Pat, this questionnaire that you want me to fill out, I don't know what the heck it's asking me. I said, what did you get? Because to me, it was English. And to them, it was like, speaking, Dutch or German. And I would say, like, no, that means this. Oh, okay. And then, and I did that naturally all the time when I was from, like, especially 1992 on to 96 when I left the Cape, and that's where my office was at. But what I realized is that people need to be spoke to in language they can understand, so they can answer you questions, so they can learn how to ask the right questions, so they get the right answers. Because so many times people go into doctors' offices and they are relying on the doctor to actually have communication skills, when 90% of them don't, and have any communication skills to be able to correlate what you're telling them and going from right side to left side, and then making somewhere in the middle, you're able to cross your fingers and meet and mesh. And even I have that experience in a Western medicine doctor's office, and I have a lot of stories, but not for right now, about those experiences. So I always try to help my patients advocate for themselves and ask the right questions. So in looking to write that book, I used those questions and I just made them into street language. And
Yeah,
I
so
was,
that's interesting
yeah.
context for me, because I was going through the book, and s- it's so much of it is questionnaire based,
It
right? And
is.
yeah,
Someone even gave me a review on Amazon, said it was one big question, but
yeah.
it isn't. It's over 300 questions. They just didn't want to answer questions about themselves and actually get past the barriers that are stopping them from having the most incredible life they possibly could have. And in order to do that, you got to have your health and you have to have your mind. And you have to know where the pieces of the puzzle in your system survey, relate to. So it is questions. Some of the biggest, two of my friends and colleagues who, I said, can you give me an endorsement? Pat, I'm only going to write a true one. I go, great. That's what I expect you to do. And if you don't want to do it, it's okay too. But this guy said to me, I have to tell you, before I had cancer, I didn't have any of those symptoms, but you did not miss the mark on any of them. Every one of them are there. And he said, and he goes, it's like he goes, you did a stellar job. And, this is some guy who is like, never says anything nice about, like, he always is looking for like, you could do it better. Even if you did like 4 stars, 5 stars, you could have made it 6 stars, but he was such a great, great feedback from me. And then I asked the publisher, I said, don't you think some of these like endorsements are a little bit long, and she said, you never shorten a good endorsement. So let's move on. What's your next question?
Yeah. Well, so I guess I have another question, but before we get there, I'm going to assume that you are seeing a lot of sick, fat, and tired people, right? Because that's why else would you write this
Well,
book?
I just thought Americans were pretty fat. When I went to, sorry, anybody, I hope that didn't offend you. I can remember walking with my husband. We were in Gatlinburg, Tennessee one time, and we actually had to walk off the sidewalk to walk around these 2 people that occupied the whole space. I said, why are these people so big? And when we went to, he was French, and when we went to France, I could easily, at the end of the month of being in France, come back and I'd be 10 pounds lighter without doing anything. It isn't like I walked around more. I did the same things that I did here that I did there. And it's just the quality of the food. There's something wrong with the food in America because it is so processed. You take a bottle of Heinz ketchup here and you go into England, it's not the same ketchup. It says the same company, but it's not the same ketchup. So, making a decision to go completely organic as much as possible, because there's still some things I can't get, I do that. I spent the extra money to do that because my investment, and your best investment, we all know, is ourselves. But a lot of people, they're willing to say, I want health, but they're not willing to invest in their health. And, that's where a book like that comes in, because it shows you where to spend your time, your energy, and your money, and where to really, really hunker down and focus in on what's going on. And it also shows you in that deep system survey how all the organ systems work together. It's like a Swiss watch. I had a person who kept on calling me up and saying, what can you do for, and some of her list was like chronic fatigue, or what could you do for, IBS, which is a gut problem. And I kept on saying to her, you didn't read the book or answer the questions. Because if you did, you wouldn't be calling me up to ask me that. She gave me this review that said, it's like, you're in Western medicine, they don't know what to do with you until you have the flat tire. I'm trying to prevent you from having that flat tire, and raising your awareness so you have much more consciousness. And from being able to do that, you have the ability to make educated decisions about what you should do, and not what someone's trying to push down your throat as to like, you should do this, or, because there's times that I've had patients come back to me when I was seeing patients, where they would say, the doctor told me if I do, if I continue with chiropractic, or if I do this, like cut out, and add more vegetables in my diet. I remember someone telling me that one day. I said, he's actually said that. You should get it in writing. You might be able to use it at some point in time. But it's just like taking those things and knowing what to do with it. And a lot of people don't know what to do with it. They get overwhelmed very easy, and they get overwhelmed because they don't eat well. Their thought processes are such.
So it's a cycle, right? You're starting with bad food. The bad food is reducing your health quality. It's making you fatter, which is further reducing your energy. All of this is making it harder for you to think and make decisions, and it becomes this vicious cycle. Is that what you're outlining there?
Basically. But the thing is that when you're eating bad foods, a lot of bad foods have chemicals in them. And those chemicals, when they pass the gut barrier, and the liver can't handle them anymore, they get buried really deep in your body in blood, brain, bone, and fat. So if you think about Alzheimer's, like, where does it come from? We didn't have all these diseases, 30, 40 years ago. And so you have to go like, well, where did it come from? And big pharma, like on Independence, where the Capitol Hill is at, they would like you to think that, it came from, it just came because you have bad genetics. Well, you're not your DNA. You're only how your DNA responds to your environment. So when you look at where toxicity comes from in our environments now, it comes from the air that you breathe, the water you drink, the food that you eat, the cleaning fluids that you use in your house. You've got to read labels. If you can't pronounce them and you don't know the side effects of them, then don't use them. There's other things that you can use that are easier, like water and vinegar, for instance, and also gardening. A lot of people, I saw a guy spraying in St. Petersburg about 2 years ago, the grass. And I said, what's in there? He said, Roundup. I went, really? And I said, it's carcinogenic. And that's when, like, Monsanto is getting a lot of those lawsuits.
Mm.
And he said, well, only if you don't breathe it. And I said, you don't have a mask on and the wind is blowing against you. And then 2 little girls ran out. I said, now your 2 little girls are running out. 65% of what you get on your body gets absorbed into your body and has to be processed. I said, those are your two. I go, those your little girls, or those your grandchildren that are running to right where you sprayed the Roundup? And he just turned around, turned it off. He walked in the house and closed the door, and I heard him lock it. And I just kept on walking. And when he was walking away, I said, and the dogs, what about the dogs in the neighborhood? They come by here and they breathe it in. No wonder dogs have got problems with their liver, because the liver gets rid of all those toxins, and kidney failure, and bladder cancer and all the other cancers that they have. No wonder.
This is just so the listeners know, and before they go and check it out, that this is like a DIY, a do-it-yourself
Yes.
guidebook to improving your entire overall health and outlook on life. Is that a fair summary?
Well, that is a good summary. And the other thing is, with New Year's coming up, everybody does not figure out how to do their health goals, and how to posture them. Like, where's my most important place for me to focus? This book will do it for you. And when you get into the book will give you the opportunity to work with me or work with somebody else. If you don't work with me, that's fine. If you need somebody in your neighborhood, you can still reach out to me. I'll help you find that person. Because you want someone who can look at that chart, and it's just an intensive question that doctors should be asking you, but they're not. And so it's an opportunity to, take a look at it. And the New Year's in your health will improve drastically if you just know where to spend and utilize that time, and where to buy foods, or maybe perhaps where not to buy foods. So that because people can have reactions to foods 5 days after they eat them, and they don't relate it to a particular item.
Right.
And that happens very frequently.
So I'm wondering how you see all of what we've been talking about so far relating into mental health issues that we see today. Are those kind of Are they causing the issues that you're trying to address? Or are they an effect of the lifestyles that you're describing and the choices that surround us?
Well, what I know and what the research says is that the gut and brain are connected. And so when you eat foods that have toxic chemicals in them, the toxicity, especially lead and some of the big heavy metals, get pulled through one layer. It's only one layer, the gut lining. It gets pulled through, and it has to go to the liver to be processed. And then it sends it back out with the idea of getting it in the toilet, either by, urine or by your poops. And if it can't do that, and it keeps on recycling because there's a problem with the intestinal tract and its ability to absorb and get rid of things, then it's going to get stored in blood, brain, bone, and fat. So a lot of, they know that anxiety and depression and other wellness, well-being issues are directly related to food. There's foods that can set you off, like foods that you should never put in your mouth, like sugar. And it's just like, can I ever eat sugar? Well, I would tell you, it's just like you should avoid it at all costs, because what happens is it's already in a lot of other food. A carbohydrate is a carbohydrate is a carbohydrate, and sugar is a carbohydrate. Sugar gets absorbed in the stomach. Fruit gets absorbed by the liver. It has to be in the stomach, then go to the liver in order for it to be processed. So it's a lot harder on the liver to be able to help get rid of those toxins. So the connection, the gut, the brain, and is very, very, it's intertwined, it's interwoven. There is more, it's just like serotonin in your gut. That's where majority of it's made than in your head. And, after Thanksgiving, since it's just before Thanksgiving when we're recording this, people eat and they wonder why they go to sleep. And it's because the tryptophan levels and the serotonin levels are not balanced any longer. And so it makes you really, really tired and sleepy. That's why you eat stuff and you go to sleep. But I say that you should be able to take a look at anytime that you eat and you get sleepy, or you don't feel good, or you feel bloated, you got to ask, what is it that was in my last meal that caused this problem?
there's people who have problems. I mean, the ones that you're talking about, and then all sorts of other problems. And so there's all these problems and people who suffer from them, but it takes them, before they can even do anything about it, they have to realize that that is a problem in their lives. So how do you help people, or how do you advise or advocate that people start building that level of awareness so that they know what they have to start addressing?
Well, the first thing I have them do is try to do diets that are like, or a meal that's only 5 ingredients. That minimizes one of the problems, because you're probably eating more fresher food. The other thing is that you need to know what the ingredients are on the label. They go from highest concentration to lowest concentration. And so if you go through there and you're finding if sugar or any word that ends in OL at the end of a word are in the first, like maybe 1/3 of the list, you don't buy it. You just put it back on the shelf. Shop from the outside walls of a grocery store. We've all heard that. It's a lot easier in doing that than it is trying to read it. One time my sister was with me when I was shopping and she left me there because I was reading labels. She goes, let me know, call me up, call me up when you're done.
You sound like a
And I'll come
blast at
back
cocktail parties.
and and she goes, I'll come back and pick you up, but you have to know what your ingredients are in your supplements, especially in the inert supplements, like, like stearate. What does stearate do? I might be able to pronounce it, but what does it do? And then start creating Excel sheets where, this is what Google says. This is one of the good things about Google. You can look at that up, and you want to know, what is it? Maybe. It's good to know what it's used for, because like, why do they put sawdust in Parmesan cheese? Cellulose is sawdust. It's like, why do they put it in Parmesan cheese? Because they want to fill the container up a little bit more and it's a little stickier. It's like, I'm thinking, I buy, I spend the extra money and I just buy the cheese and I grate it myself. But at least I know what I'm eating. It's being aware, what you're eating, and you have to say, again, if you're ever confused, sometimes I look at when I'm traveling in a car and I go into a gas station, like there's coffee and stuff like this, and there's a Subway there. I'm always thinking, how, like, other than that, there's a lot of heavy metals in tuna, but out of all the things that are on their list, I'm going, tuna is my least suspect thing that I can eat. And so I put, it's just like when I go in, I usually never buy it. I usually go out, I get a bottle of water, and one time I even stopped. I was so lucky because there was a Hardee's, there was, McDonald's, there was a Burger King, there's every one of those kind of stores in front of me. And I got gasoline. I went, oh, I was so hungry. And I happened to just, like, something told me to look over my shoulder and I saw the end of the sign for Trader Joe's. And I was like, yes, and that was in Tallahassee this last year. And I went in there and I had a great, I had something that didn't make me tired after I ate it. And which a lot of times those types of foods that are at those places, because there's so much sugar and salt, and you're using white flour. And a lot of people have gut sensitivities. They don't know it. There's a whole list, but I would tell people to, take a look at 5 ingredients, take a look at the ingredients and look up what those ingredients do. What is the side effect of those? And then start making an Excel sheet. So the next time you see it, and just keep it on your computer.
So one thing that's coming across pretty clearly to me in this interview is you have a tremendous amount of energy and a tremendous drive. Was that always true, or was that something? I mean, it sounds like your father thought maybe it was, but is that something that was always part of you, or is that something that's you've evolved and developed over time?
I have always been an out of the box thinker and to, like, my mother's dismay, but as far as like drive goes, when I wanted to, I finished high school, I went to my father's house. My parents were divorced. I went to my father's house. He goes, "We're going to go to college." And I said to him, I go, "I'm not going to go." And he said, "What do you mean you're not going to go? I saved up all this money for you to go to college. What do you mean you're not going to go?" And I just said to him, I go, "I don't want to go." And I just kept my answer short. He goes, "Great, let's go down to downtown Detroit and we're going to go have lunch." And I said, I asked him if his wife was coming. He goes, "No, it's just you and me." And I thought, Hmm. This is not a good thing. But I got in the car and we went down there and he got off at Old Tiger Stadium where the riot started in 67, 68. I can't remember what year it is now. And he stopped the car in some street and he goes, "Get out." And just in that tone, "Get out." And I said, "Why would I want to get out here?" And he said, "Because," he said, "if you're not going to go to college, this is where you're going to live." And for him, college meant everything. And he said, and so I thought, if you find a nice house on the street that you consider nice, and he goes, "I will offer them money for it, cash." And he goes, "And you can live here." And I just went, "I'll go to the college of your choice." It didn't take me any more than a like New York nanosecond to answer that one, And so, and I went to college, and then, I just had, really, I've always, I always gravitated towards eating well, and I was always interested in science. I did acid base, indicators. I talk to people about acid base water all the time. And, I can go back to my study I did when I was 9 years old and came in second in the state, just by accident using Velocity pickle jars. And that my father luckily was working for Allied Chemicals at the time, and he could bring me a bottle of phenolphthalein home. And so, which I don't, he said that's a big word for someone who's 9 years old. So, but at any rate, he helped me put it together, and he made me explain to him how acid base work and why it's so important for like to know what the acid base is in the body, So I wrote up this little story, and I submitted it, and my teacher loved it, and he submitted it to the state. And it was like those kind of things. But I've always been, an athlete. I grew up with all boys. I guess I get the drive from that because as part of it as a foundational thing, because I didn't have anybody to play with. So if I wanted to play Barbies, that'd be great if I was a solo person, but there's nothing solo about me. And, so I played football, basketball, baseball. I could kick farther, throw farther. I understand. I watch, because I'm a sports physician, I watch sports because I want to watch the mechanism of injury. Which makes everyone sound like, "Well, how did they do that? What do you think he hurt? Did he hurt his shoulder? Did he hurt his knee?" Those are things that, that intrigue me when I'm watching, structure, function, and motion. And it fits really well with chiropractic principles, and being healthy, because you got to be able to move.
Yeah.
My second patient ever just said, "If you don't move, you're going to die." And her form of exercise was taking a Dixie cup and watering her 150 little plants in the backyard,
Wow, that
at the
sounds
age
like
of
one of those.
92.
That sounds like one of those Buddhist Zen tasks where you just.
Well, she lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and where she lived at Atlanta that time was turning a little bit iffy, and she was too scared to walk around the block by herself. So that's what she did,
Yeah.
is, went out there. But she was my second patient ever. But I use that line, and I've written about, if you don't move, you're going to die, dash, quote unquote, grandma. And it was very, intriguing with, her, and, just her concepts. So some of those wisdom type things I always say, what's your health hack? When I ask people, "What's your health hack?" And people go, "What do you mean?" Brushing your teeth is a health hack. Because it's a ritual that you do because it was a habit that should become a ritual. And if you don't do it, you should make it into a habit. And, but it's like doing those things that, like somebody said years ago, like my grandmother used to have a shot of cider vinegar. And periodically, like if her throat was starting to get sore, she would just take it, throw it in the back of her throat, let it sit there, and then she would swallow it and then drink it with water. The first time I ever did that, I thought I was going to die. And she goes, "This is good for you." And, but she was that, that old, like she was born 1895. So a lot of things, so they didn't have a lot of things that were available, but there were things that did help people get better, faster, and quicker. And that, so it was great in that. And I also have, my ancestry goes back to apothecaries back in the 1600s.
Wow. Well,
Yeah. So
well,
it's just like, I just think that drive thing kind of like, is DNA.
yeah, no, I'm picking that up. You have centuries of momentum built up here. So,
It's like, here I am.
Dr. Pat, this has been a seriously engaging interview. Again, everyone, the bestseller is "Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired?" Dr. Pat, where can people buy that, and where can they make contact with you?
They can buy that on Amazon, and it is the book with the red letters on it because it's the second edition. I published that this year, and that's the one that you want to buy because it's updated, the whole spiel, and the best place for people to get a hold of me, I have a beautiful new website coming out very shortly, and that's healthteamnetwork.com. And right now you would look at the older version. LinkedIn's a great place to, grab me and get a hold of me. So if you're on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out, Dr. Pat Boulogne. Instagram's the same, ending part, just my Dr. Pat Boulogne, no punctuation. And I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, and I also have a personal page that's there that I post a lot about health, wellness, and fun things, doing your life. Gotta have fun.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll put links to all of that in the show notes. So,
Yep.
Dr. Pat, thank you so much for making the time this week. As you said, it's we're recording this. It's right before Thanksgiving, so I know it's a really busy time. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us here on the Healthier Tech podcast.
Wonderful. I have just totally enjoyed it. I'll even let you invite me back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Healthier Tech Podcast. Remember to check the show notes for all the links and resources mentioned in the show. Please like and subscribe to the Healthier Tech Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Get your free quick start guide to building a healthier relationship with technology and our latest information at healthiertech.co.